Well, here we are again with another new opportunity. Yes, it's still a new year and it's still a new you. Welcome to another broadcast with Win with Willie. Thank you for joining me today. And guess what, ladies and gentlemen, don't ever forget that 2022 is a year of no excuses. We have a responsibility to inspire until we expire. I am so happy to see you today. I'm hoping that you feel the same about me and happy to see me today for another phenomenal broadcast of Wind with Willie Leadership Talk Show. What we do not see, what most of us never suspect of existing, is the silent but irresistible power which comes to the rescue of those who fight on in the face of discouragement. And that quote is by Napoleon Hill. I just love that quote. Why? Because we all have that silent, irresistible power to fight on in the face of opposition. And Win with Willie Talk Show is about encouraging us to fight on, to lead on, to serve on, to grow on, reaching our fullest God given potential and becoming the best version of ourselves. Because the best gift you can give your family, your community, your organization is the best version of yourself. And how do you and I become the best version of ourselves? I'm so glad you asked. We must first learn to lead ourselves. Because I'm here to tell you, you and I cannot give what we do not have. And today, I am totally honored and totally have a privilege to have one of our world class, and I didn't say nation class, I'm talking one of our world class first responders, Chief John Alston. And I just want to share something about this phenomenal first responder that's out there saving lives every day and serving our community. Let me share some things about this phenomenal gentleman I have on the screen. Chief John Alston, a 37-year veteran of emergency management, dedicated his life. Currently, for the last 5 years, Chief Alston has served as a fire chief of the New Haven Fire Department. As a Jersey City fireman, Chief John at that time, he wasn't Chief John at that time, but he was a first responder to the World Trade Center on September 11, 2001, where he witnessed leadership and courage on a grand scale, which impacted his life forever. And let me tell you, I was still active duty Air Force, Chief John. It impacted my life forever. And soon thereafter, John retired from the Jersey City Fire Department after 31 years just there. As a former master instructor of the International Association of Firefighters, Chief John has trained hundreds of firefighters, fire officers, and first responders around the nation. He is a former operations director of the chair of curriculum for the Carl Home Executive Development Institute, where he's trained and coached hundreds of emergency management officers to become executive officers. John has been blessed to travel and train all over the world. Currently, he's executive director of the Fire Officers Trust, where he coaches business leaders, first responders, law enforcement officers, and emergency management leaders in their command roles and responsibility during large-scale emergency. His services are now extended to other agencies, organizations, and leaders and managers to aid and support their team-building initiative. His specialty is to help individuals and team focus on their personal and professional growth. That is definitely a blessing to my heart. He's also a certified Maxwell Leadership Team Executive Coach Trainer and Behavior Analysis. John is a frequent keynote speaker and panelist on several a variety of topics from leadership, diversity, emergency management to response to the opiate crisis. But mostly important, let me highlight this. Chief is married 35 years to the lovely Cheryl, and they have two sons, John the third. Believe it or not, John, what you're looking at now is John the second, and John the third, and Malcolm. Chief, sir, welcome to Win with Willie Leadership Talk Show.
Good
So glad to
morning.
have you.
Good morning, Professor Jeff. You always get uncomfortable when someone reads your bio. You just want to say, I need to cut something else off and cut something else off, or cut the camera off. I'm not. I'm not. I'm not. I'm not that person. But we've been talking about getting together for a little bit now, and
Yes, we have.
through the pandemic and through our different respective responsibilities and our mutual responsibilities. It is so nice to see you every now and then when we do the huddles and the executive directors trainings and coaching, that we pass each other there, but we finally come to your house. And I am honored and privileged to have the opportunity to talk with you today.
Well, I'm going to say this today. This is your house.
All right.
This is your house. This is all about Chief John Alston and sharing your expertise and your knowledge and your spirit of giving and your spirit of serving to our community. I want people to know how you serve this nation on a daily basis. What I'm saying, Chief, that you put your life on the line on a daily basis on my behalf. And so, sir, I honor you for what you do. And I think my audience is also going to recognize the impact of what those first responders go through. And they get to hear it from a first responder to the person responsible for training and educating first responders and encouraging them and connecting them with the mission of serving their communities. So it's so much I can say about what you do, because I am totally privileged to be on this broadcast with you today. So, sir, this is your platform. I am here for you. But I want to acknowledge, let's see, who do we have out there right now that's listening to us? Rodney Payne, you might know that gentleman, but he said,
I
man,
know
I
that.
tell you
I know
what,
that
you've heard that
gentleman.
name. Look at there. Look at there.
Oh,
Thank
boy.
you, Rodney, for joining us. He said, man, look at, he's teaching Bible study right now, but he's there. He is there. So, Rodney, thank you for being with us today. I appreciate what Rodney and appreciate the support of other members of our community. Well, let me start out with something not so serious, Chief.
All right.
Okay. I want to ask this, and then we'll get into some nuts and bolts of what you do on a daily basis.
Sure.
But let me start out. What do you do for your free time? Well, first of all, do you ever have any free time?
No.
So what?
what is free time?
Absolutely. What is free time?
But I also want to not miss the opportunity when you talk about what happens on a daily basis. I cannot stress enough that gets done both in my previous employ and here by the firefighters that you see every day, the women and men who go in and crawl down the halls and do the medical calls. They do so much in our communities and go above and beyond, also risking their lives, treating folks during this pandemic. I appreciate the accolades that you gave, but we share that. I always say when things go good, they get all the credit. When things go bad, it's my responsibility. And Rodney Payne just popped up there. We met him through John Maxwell as well. He has become my brother and my coach. And I know what's going to happen after I get off this. He's going to say something about free time. What are you doing with your free time? There's no such thing. There's no rest for the weary.
I totally agree. There's no free time. You even at nighttime, you standing by the phone, you sitting by the phone, or if you take a nap, the phone wakes you up. Mm-hmm. Absolutely, I understand it. Well, can I ask you about your favorite dessert then?
My favorite dessert?
Yes, sir.
Well, as I've become more prosperous, I know you can't see me here. I'll just use that as a term. I like peach cobbler, and I like, there's a cake, there's a restaurant Cheryl and I frequent here. It's Sandra. She does all kinds of desserts, but there's a wonderful, every time we go in, there's a different cake. So I like cake, and I like peach cobbler.
All right. So as you know, I'm from Texas, and so we're down here where we eat a lot of sweet potato pie.
Oh, yeah,
that's a Southern tradition, and pecan pie. That's what we do down here. There you go, pecan pie, sweet potato pie, but pecan pie is my favorite. But now, Chief, you don't have a lot of free time, but do you ever get this opportunity to say, honey, Miss Lovely Cheryl, we're going to get on a plane and we're going to go somewhere. We're going to go to our favorite vacation spot. And if you and Miss Lovely Cheryl is going to your favorite vacation spot, what would that be?
All right. I can answer that easily because we celebrated our 35th anniversary last September. and we went to Turks and Caicos, and we thoroughly enjoyed that, and we'll probably do that again. But believe it or not, as you travel like I travel, we use our vacations to work. I teach at a lot of programs and the like, and she goes with me. Our sons are grown now, so it's just her and I. And so the lovely Mrs. Alston, lovely Cheryl Alston, she'll either meet me there or just go with me. And we
That's
get those times in between times.
that's a good deal. Absolutely. We got to have that time. You know, that's important. You have to know that's important. I got Carl Williams that's talking to us right now. Let's see what Carl Williams has to say. He said, "Thanks for having us here to meet this very impressive and important guest." You're right, Carl. You absolutely impressive and important. And he likes peach cobbler.
Like each other. Thank you, Carl.
Absolutely. Okay. One more question. And what is your driving force in your life? How are you grounded? What's your driving force? What keeps you centered?
Um, well, first of all, I'm a man of faith, and so that is the foundation for everything. Um, I was raised by two wonderful parents. I always say that my father taught me manhood, my mother taught me humanity. And my mother had four rules that we grew up with, and I have three sisters and myself. And I've used these rules to govern my life. And she said, if you do them, you can go anywhere, and they'll invite you back. And the first rule of the four rules is to keep your hands to yourself.
I love it. I love it.
The second is to share what you have. She used to say share and share alike, but share what you have. The third one is if you don't have anything nice to say about someone, don't say anything at all. And the final one was the most important. If you have the ability to help someone, anyone, you help them and don't expect anything in return. If you can do that, you'll be able to go anywhere in the world.
I love it. I love it. So keep my hands to myself.
Yep.
Share what you have.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have something nice to say, in other words, keep your mouth shut.
Yeah, that sounds very familiar.
Absolutely. And help someone always.
Yeah.
Always. If you got a way
That's
to
the
help
driving
someone.
force.
That's the drive. Absolutely. I love to hear that. What it comes out of that foundation of your man of faith. I love it. And raised with some strong parents that teaching you the values of life.
Mm-hmm.
Well, man, I tell you what, you're my brother from another mother.
Gotcha.
Absolutely, absolutely. And let's get into some nuts and bolts of our conversation. We know we like peach cobbler.
Ciao.
You know you like making me sure to Ticos, and I forgot that I can't Tacos. What's that island? Say that island one more time.
Turks and Caicos.
Texaco. Okay.
Uh-huh.
And you know you grounded by your faith. So, folks, you got the basis of Chief John Alston. So you know how he's rooted and grounded. That's why it's important that he does what he does, because he's been given a heart of service. Absolutely. Chief, let's talk about your leadership journey. From where you started, where you are, maybe you can connect that to high school, and what drove you to be a community servant-minded leader.
Okay, so I always wanted to be a firefighter since I was about 4 years old. So I'm actually living my life's dream, coupled with the foundation that my family gave us, all of us, my sisters and I, was a servant's heart. We've always served our communities at no matter what level, no matter how young we were. We did clothing drives. My parents had started something called Operation Help when I was in grammar school for fire victims. We worked in our communities, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, young adult choir. We always worked in missions, and we've always known that whatever we had, we could do better, and we could do better for others. And so by growing up in a family like that, we worked in our church community center. It was probably one of the first real jobs that I had. And my parents employed other people from the community. I still run into young folks that I grew up with and say, hey, your parents gave me my first job. That they managed the community center in our community when there was no other community center. And so having that as the foundation and having that in your life at an early age, you develop a servant's heart. Now, of course, as I became a young man and went into college, I lost my mother when she was 48 years old and I was 20. And that had a profound impact on my life as well. And so I call that my wandering years for a few years. I,
Okay.
I'm not going to say I was mad. No, I was mad at God. And it was like we were like an old married couple. We still loved each other, but we just weren't talking
When
at that
talking.
time. And um, it wasn't until I met Cheryl and we had our children and we started going back to church. Actually, she started going first and then brought me. And we got into a great fellowship. Shout out to Fountain Baptist Church, Summit, New Jersey. Pastor Reverend Dr. J. Michael Sanders, who was able to bring the Bible alive, relative to me and to my family. And I attribute that as not only the foundation, but the formation of knowing that if you have something, share it. And if you can help someone, you help them.
Yep.
And that is the basis of my leadership. And reading some of John Maxwell stuff, even before he had the license out, sharing John Maxwell books and quotes with folks. Understanding that there is the Bible, there's your faith, but then there's the application of the same, and that and learning redemption, learning that you have to be able to forgive folks because that you want them to forgive them because you mess up too. No one's perfect, and so that tied to that, understanding that I had a message to share through my mentors, Dr. Carl Holmes, Dr. Dennis O'Neill. Commissioner Lloyd Ayers from the Philadelphia Fire Department. There were so many folks that were placed into my life that saw something that I didn't see, that cultivated that desire to share at another level, at a higher level, at a broader level.
Fantastic. You just touched on a lot of great things, and I'm going to extract some of the information and ask some follow-up questions. And one of the things I like what you said is that when things are poured into you, we use a lot of the John Maxwell team literature, John Maxwell team content, and one of the things that came out of that is that stay a river. As things flow into you, make sure they flow out of you and share those with others. One of the things I want you to elaborate on, you mentioned the fact that you always wanted to be a firefighter since you was 4 years of age.
Yep.
And the reason I go back to that, because while you saying that as a kid and you don't have the intellect or the emotional intelligence to really to articulate that, but it's something in you. So now speak to a parent that when your son or daughter say, Mom, Dad, I want to do this, what should be the response of a parent when that son or daughter say that when they're 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 years of age? And what should be our engagement after the fact when we do that? Because I as an educator, I can share some language, and also as a parent and me mentoring other parents, I can share some language that's counter to that. But what should be the dialogue after that son or daughter once they articulate, Mom, I want to be a firefighter? Because as a boy, you always say, I want to be a firefighter, I want to be a police officer, all those, I want to be a pilot. You hear those professions. So now talk to us about what should a parent should say when their son or daughter say, I want to be a firefighter.
Thank you so much for that question. So parents today and young people and children today have access to information at lightning speed and at their fingertips that we never had. I had the firehouse around the corner, and that's where I got bitten by the bug for which there is no cure. Hallelujah. But what a parent can do now is encourage them by not only going online and looking at information, but take them to your local fire station. I guarantee you the firefighters will open the doors, allow them to sit in the trucks, talk to them about the job, talk to them about how they were able to acquire the position and the different positions that they have. They'll have the answers that parents won't have right away, and it'll be in real time. And that is what allows the connection in the community, knowing that that station belongs to the community, not just the firefighters, but it belongs to the community. And I can tell you, coming up, it was difficult for me because I was born in 1960, and I knew those nice firefighters around the corner, but I also had a television in our house. And I got to see firefighters who I thought I wanted to be like, and I wanted to be like, using fire hoses, washing people down the street that looked like me, as if God had created nothing. And so I had to reconcile what I saw in those images with those nice folks that gave me a ride on the truck. And I can tell you the vast majority of them, they understood what was going on, but they still accepted me as this young man who wanted to be a firefighter. So they
Mhm.
stopped in front of my house one time and asked my mother, could I take a ride around the corner? And here I am.
That's right. And the reason I bring that up, and I'll tell you why. First of all, let me acknowledge some of my visitors that's listening to your show right now. And I tell you what, Miss Verma K. Smith, thank you for joining. I want to share this message right now on the screen. What she's saying, she said, servant leadership. Thank you, Chief Alston. You're a prime example, most impressive information, important impact as a servant leader. Thank you, Verna, for those statements. And Chief, you can say something to her if you like, since you see in those comments
Thank,
on the screen
thank
right
you,
now.
thank you, Ms. Werner K. Smith, for your kind words. It is a journey of 1,000 steps and a step every day.
Amen.
Thank
Absolutely.
you. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Vernon, for joining. And the reason I bring that, and you just shared, you said a lot, Chief. They have the television, they have the internet, they have information at the speed of lightning right now to take their sons or daughter to the fire station to connect with. The fire station doesn't belong to the fireman; it's part of the community. And so, parents, when your children are making that statement, "I want to do this," is our responsibility as a parent is to nurture that, is to keep watering that seed and use the water. And you got access to information. You take them. I hear this statement sometimes, "Well, I want to be a pilot." Absolutely, son. And but the counter to that, I don't want to get into the negative side, but I've heard some parents say, "No, son, you da 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 da, you don't want to." No, please encourage that, flourish that, because you're teaching your children to dream. You're teaching your teams to be aspirational about things in life. Whatever they say, you need to find a way to nourish that seed and nourish that dream.
And to let them know that their dreams are in reach.
That's right.
They're not that
Absolutely.
far away.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
And take them to that airport. Take them to the airport. If you can get access to the air traffic control tower, if you can get access to a pilot that you know, sit them down with an aircraft with a pilot and let them talk to that pilot. Nourish that dream. So I really appreciate you saying that. That's significantly important. And I want to kind of highlight that message because we do have some parents or some grandparents. We have some grandparents that's watching this show today. Please, if you talk to your son and daughter, make sure they're nourishing that seed in your child. That's significantly and important. So I really thank you. And then also you mentioned something about mentors because you mentioned mentors, fire chiefs, and other members of your community that was mentoring you. Why and was what was some of your memorable occasion with those mentors, and how did those mentors shape your life?
Well, there was the Dr. Dennis O'Neill early on. Well, let me back up. Captain Thomas Taylor, and firefighter Harry Amica, who was in my neighborhood, lived a block away. Our families went to the same church. In fact, his sister was my first girlfriend, so I thought. This is my first girlfriend, and but Harry encouraged me to take the fire exam and get the application. And Captain Tom Taylor was friends with our family, and his son went to school with my sisters, and they were actively and aggressively recruiting young women and men of color to join the fire services. And so we had a support system coming in. And then I got to work with Dr. Dennis O'Neill, who had a different take on the fire service. He was on the suppression side, but he also studied the data. He started doing data analysis. And I had a background in a little bit of television communication and computers. And we got to work together on some projects, some nationally recognized projects. And I got to find out how the data should be driving what we do. And then there was Dr. Carl Holmes, who taught about internal customers and external customers. Chief Alan Brunancini talked about customer service, taught us about customer service. There are so many folks, and Commissioner Lloyd Ayers taught me, and mentored me on how important to make the connection between the community that we represent, and I saw it pop up just a hot second ago, underserved communities, and how we had to be the vanguard in our communities. Captain Dave Floyd, who was passed now, who was in the fire department in New York, he was president of the International Association of Black Professional Firefighters, was a mentor. Cheryl and I used to go to his house, and We would talk about things while I worked on his computer and he cooked, and we talked about the importance of sharing information and utilizing information in what we do. You're not just firefighters going in, dragging a fire hose down a hallway and shooting water all over the place. And there is a science, there's a method, and there is a drive to serve communities. And so all of them have had, I sometimes I hate naming mentors because they continue to be mentors. Bobby Halton from Fire Engineering, John Salka, so many people. Lenny Carmichael, one of my peers, is still a mentor to me, and Rodney Payne that came on earlier. You can learn from anyone. There is so much information, and I always tell even folks that I work with and I coach, you know what you know, and I know what I know, but collectively together, we can know so many different things and touch so many people's lives if we come together. We don't always have to agree. In fact, I've learned more from people telling me no and disagreeing with me than I've had with people that give me the attaboy and that's a good job. So learning how to accept criticism, which is tough for a whole lot of folks. I mean, you and I do DISC assessments and behavioral analysis and all that. You know, we do that kind of thing. And so just as much as we read the behaviors of other folks, we have to be honest with our own behaviors and our own concerns. And it's just a matter of understanding where you are and accepting criticism as a part of the learning and growing process. And coupled with some great mentors, you can do just about anything you want to do.
Absolutely. And one of the great undergirding I'm hearing you saying, Chief, is that we can't do it by ourselves. We can't get further down the road. We can't get higher on the ladder without a mentor.
Mm-hmm.
So tell my audience that the reason of where you are today, and I want you to kind of continue to highlight this because I want to stay in this mentor piece just for a little longer,
Sure.
the significance of that.
Mm-hmm.
You talked about these names, you talked about what they poured into you. It's just one alone is not significant. You can only be significant and great with others, and you can't. So kind of talk to my audience the importance of having that mentor. Not only can we, what I know and what you know, because I do a thing with conflict resolution, 1 + 1 = 3 instead of 1 + 1 = 2, because we come together, we have multiple ideas and we have a third alternative, and we pull our brains together. And of course, 1 + 1 = 3. So talk to us about the importance, not only the importance of that mentor, what you just talked about. You highlighted some key mentors in your life,
Mm-hmm.
but you got to where you are because of those mentors. Tell my audience the importance of having mentors in their life. You cannot do life by yourself. You cannot. So I see you shaking your head now. Now take that nonverbal and turn it into a verbal, the significance and importance of a mentor.
Sure. So we hear a lot about mentors, and thank you for that. We hear a lot about mentors and coaching and life coaching and mentorship and mentees and stewardship. These are all words that flow into each other, and it's not that they become convoluted. They become somewhat cross-pollinated. Okay, they're cross-pollinated.
Absolutely.
The mentorship I'm talking about. So most times mentors have the answers and they share them with you and they guide you. A coach has the right questions to get the quality questions that will get the quality answers that allow you to find things for yourself, find the answers for yourself. And that is a meaningful process as well. But in the mentorship piece, we're learning from other folks' successes and failures. They cut the time down in the failure part, and some a lot of times people think failure is a negative word. In one of the classes I teach, I always teach that use failure as an opportunity, learn to accept it and grow with it and learn from it. You're gonna pay for every lesson you get in life. So learn and pay and learn from that payment. But mentors can share their success in very, very specific steps. And it's not that they're going to eliminate the pain that you're going to have, but they can shorten or reduce the number of times you will have missteps. In other words, you'll be able to get from point A to point Z in a quicker manner because they have shared with you their experiences. And that's the value of mentorship. the value of mentorship, and then you add to that coaching, where they're asking the right questions, quality questions to get the right answers. I've had that in my life, and I wouldn't mentor or coach anyone until I got a mentor and a coach of my own, because you can't, as we said before, you can't give what you don't have.
Don't have. And one of the greatest things at the conclusion of that statement is that when I tell my coaching clients, I ask them, ask me who is my coach, because every coach has a coach.
Mhm.
Every mentor is a mentee.
Mhm.
And that's significant. And what I always say at the front of my show, you and I cannot give what we do not have.
Yep.
And so for me to be an effective coach, I must be coachable. For me to be an effective mentor, you and I must be an effective mentee. And
Agreed.
that's how we pour into people, because I like what you also said too about failures. Failure should be part of the process.
Yeah.
Failures is part of living. And I like what um, uh, I think her name was Kit Cole, done one of the leadership, one of the Live to Lead. Failure, first attempt in learning.
Got it.
FAIL, first attempt in learning. And you
Love it.
also mentioned the word no in this part of this mentoring process. You have learned more from people that have told you no,
Yes.
because the inspiration and desire to grow, you looked at no as being a new opportunity
Sure.
after new opportunities. So
Sure.
you have really shared some major important aspect of leadership, personal growth, and development. And so with that being said, what are some of the qualities that you look for? You are now looking at leaders around you, you developing the leaders around you, because as a person in charge, you have to grow leaders.
Sure.
What are
Sure.
you looking for? What are some of the qualities you're looking for in your future leaders for the fire department or in your community?
Excellent. Thank you for that question. So I wrestled with that for a while when I was back in my old employ, and I was running what they called captain school, but it was command school. It was after folks got promoted. And from my mentors, my own study and experience, and working with new officers and getting them to move from what we call from buddy to boss, from the working person to the working for person, or to middle management in our organizations, I noticed that there were these traits. And so I've been teaching this class called the 7 C's of Fire Officer Trust. And I won't dive into that on this show, but I will
Mhm.
share the characteristics and traits. And the characteristics and traits were having commitment, making sure you had your commitments in place, that you were competent, that you had confidence, or what you and I know to be command presence. They would know that. They would be courteous. They would communicate well. They would be consistent, and they would have the courage to try. And from those 7 C's, I actually wrote a book. It's I'm negotiating with a publisher right now, so hopefully that will be on the shelves, as we say, by this fall. We had another conversation about it last week, in terms of not just the content, but what we're going to do with it afterwards. Because, as you know, now we have access to our own platforms. We have access to self-publishing, so we're going back and forth through that. But back to those 7 traits, those 7 characteristics. That's what I look for. Now, in the current system that I'm in, most of the leaders are selected by collective bargaining agreements and civil service process. But there are times when I can exercise the rule of three, and there are times I can have my own discretion depending on where they are in the organization, where I get to pick my team. And so I look for those 7 traits, and utilizing the training that we've had through John Maxwell on behavior and communication and leadership, you're able to craft these rubrics that will provide a score. And then you get a pool of candidates to choose from. And then you're able to interview them as well. And then through that process, you come in with a top 3 or a top 2. And then it gets very, very personal in the selection. But that's the system that I use currently, looking for those traits, because they're in every good leader. I have seen those 7 traits. I have not, some have had a lot more than one,
Mm-hmm.
but none of the great leaders that I've studied, that I've worked with, and or been mentored by, none of them had them absent.
That's powerful.
Always,
Now,
Yeah. Mhm.
I'm going to follow up with that because first of all, I need to get the name of the book because we need to articulate the name of the book so our audience get this book. It's going to come out soon, and I'm sure you're going to share with me the links so that we can pre-order. So, what is the name of the
Sure.
book?
Sure. It's in negotiation now, so the manuscript is with the publisher, but it is called The Seven C's of Fire Officer Trust.
Seven C's of Fire Officer Trust. Did you
You got
guys get that? Seven C's of Fire Officer Trust. I'm emphasizing that significantly so our audience can get that. And I
it.
will definitely share that again because I want to be able seven C's of
Appreciate
Fire Officer Trust. Now, with that being said, I need you to repeat those seven C's in order or not in particular order, but what those seven C's again, because I am certainly, we got Nikki out of Fort Worth. Thanks, Nikki. Nikki is also a Maxwell member. She was with me last week when I was doing my work in Allen. So Nikki, thank you for watching. And Nikki is making comments saying, I am learning a lot. This is stuff literally Nikki is making comments and she's watching with me and say, I love it. So thanks, Nikki, for watching. And then we got Carl Williams at the bottom here. Carl, what did Carl say? Let me roll down and see what Carl has just said. Carl said, got it. Amazing. Carl's got it. Thanks, Carl. So let's talk about those seven C's one more time. Not talk about, but just kind of share those seven C's one more time.
Okay. So what it is about leadership. So I'm not here to promote Maxwell. I'm here
absolutely about leadership.
Which I just want to be clear, very clear on that. But the seven C's are the commitment, competence, confidence, communication, courtesy, consistency, and courage. Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you what, I'm looking forward to this book, Chief. I'm looking forward to this book. I'm going to be an advocate for this book because that's something that we can take this book, what you're doing right now. And you're talking about developing the leaders around you.
Sure.
And that's what you're looking for. And you're talking about developing the leader within you. That's what you're looking for. So absolutely. Crystal, thanks for watching. Crystal Baptiste is watching. So Chief, you have a following out there, sir. People out there making comments. Absolutely. What an amazing story. Now, let me dive into this. This is sensitive to me. This is almost personal to me, but it's probably even more personal to you, what you did on 9/11. You were working for Jersey City. You were not in New Haven at the time. I know I was still active duty Air Force. I know that impacted me for the rest of my life. I know what my men and women had to do in armed services to be able to defend what 9/11. I know some men and women raised their right hand. That were civilians raised their right hand and say, I'm going to fight this situation because no one's going to attack our country the way the terrorists attacked our country on 9/11. From your perspective, kind of talk us through that from where you were when you first got the notice and you had to respond in 9/11 and some of the lessons that came out of it. I'll let you just talk openly about that because that question was not necessarily in part of our script today, but you knew I was going to ask.
I had a feeling. Yeah. I was off duty that day. I was at home, and pretty strange situation. I had gotten rid of cable TV that Friday because I was going to switch over to a dish service. So my TVs weren't on, and it was a beautiful Tuesday morning. Got out, and got the kids to school, and I wanted to get up on the roof because I knew they had to put a dish up there somewhere, and I was looking southwest, which is where they normally try to point the dishes where I am in the country, and was not looking northeast, even though I couldn't see the towers until I got on the highway. I live about 24 miles outside of Jersey City. And once you get on the highway, you're on the highway about 5-10 minutes, you can see the towers. I drive into work and see them all the time. In fact, let me back up. I went to school downtown Jersey City. I watched the towers go up. I watched them being built as a kid back in the early to mid 70s. And so what was striking was it was very quiet. I could hear the scanner, my radio scanner, in the house. There was a lot of stuff going on, but didn't pay much attention to it. It wasn't until my neighbor across the street who saw me on the roof came running out. She said, John, a plane hit the World Trade Center. And immediately I came downstairs, came down the ladder, and went into the house, and I was listening to the radio, and I grabbed the radio, but I had no TV. I had disconnected them on Friday. So I grabbed my scanner and went next door or across the street to her house and saw what had happened. And immediately I had the feeling that it was not an accident. You'll remember a few years ago, the miracle on the Hudson. Sully Sullivan landed the plane on the Hudson River. The commercial pilots in that area know that because it's densely populated there, that you would not, if you have any control of the plane at all, you would put the plane in the water.
In the water.
River. You have a better chance of survival for everyone as opposed to trying to land a plane in downtown New York or even Jersey City at the time. There's no place that you can put a plane down without killing thousands of people, as we saw. So he, in that miracle on the Hudson, put it down. So when I saw that a commercial airliner had hit broadside at one of the towers, and then to see it happen again, we just knew. So I had already hopped in the car. I'm listening to the scanner, and as I'm driving now, I can see the smoke header from the towers. Initially, when we got what they call, we weren't supposed to go to our original firehouses. We were going to go to another site, which is part of our alternative response plan. Then it was, no, you grab your gear. You're going to cover the city, cover Jersey City, and the on-duty rescue. I was working the rescue company at the time. The on-duty rescue and some crews were going to go into New York. So as you know, in a large-scale disaster like that, your orders change rapidly, and then there's the hurry up and wait. So a few hours after the second plane hit, we were all assembled downtown, but we were now treating people who were walking through the Holland Tunnel and coming over on the water taxis. Thousands of people were exiting downtown New York, covered in plaster and dust and the like. And so they were being triaged. Mobile triage centers were being set up. We finally collected ourselves and were able to go through the Holland Tunnel, believe it or not, in a van, the Holland Tunnel, to meet up with our sisters and brothers in New York and get deployed for search and rescue. Massive damage. Tower 7 was still up, but many of the New York vehicles were crushed. We went down to assist them with water lines to some of the trucks that were still operating, no operators there, assisting them with accountability where we could, searching where we could. But obviously that pile was very, very hot. And we continued days after, obviously, to search. But we got a warning to get back up we were at church in Vesey, somewhere around that area, to get back up because they believed that there were multiple devices in the area. And that was around the time, I believe it was late afternoon, when Tower 7 came down. And that literally chased us up the street with the dust cloud. The hard part, that continues to be a hard part, is that I had several friends in the New York City Fire Department that we lost that day. And having the scanner, you got to actually hear some of the cries for help. What is not told are the civilians and firefighters who rescued tens of thousands of people went home that day. And that's something that isn't talked about a lot. Yes, we lost only 3,000 folks there and 343 firefighters. But the success was that the plans and evacuations work and the firefighters from the FDNY and Fire Department in New York made horrific efforts and successful efforts in getting people out and getting them home.
My goodness. How? And I can tell you where I was that day because it was a Tuesday and I was at work at Dice Air Force Base in Abilene, Texas. And one of my subordinates came to me, First Sergeant Willie come to my office, knock on the door and said, something just happened. Someone just hit the World Trade Center. Of course, to pull the TV on, and we were sitting there watch the second plane hit. And I tell you what, I will never forget that moment where my heart was just reaching out. Said, and so immediately we went. Of course, military went on for alert, lockdown, and all of the above. And it just and I saw a lot of folks in my local community, young men, all of a sudden now After that, they want to do what? They want to join the military. They want to be part of the mission. They want to be part of what we have been called to do, and that's to serve and defend this country. And it definitely impacted a lot of our lives forever. And so I just want to thank you because I know you were on scene, you were there, and I just want to make sure my audience know that this gentleman is on the screen by the name of Chief John Alston. His first name is not Chief, but his name is John Alston II. He had a calling to be a fireman when he was 4 years of age. And look where he is today because the mentors in his life, mom and dad planting those seeds, mom and dad modeling, being real models in his life of servantship and community mindset in spite of all the challenges, and had a fire station in the community that was part of community. And so what you have shared with us today, Chief, is that it is a journey. It is not a marathon. It is not a sprint. It is a marathon going through life and people nurturing you along the way and keep planting those seeds. But you also shared also is that guess what? In the midst of all that, there will be failures. But those seeds are so embedded, you know how to get up from those failures. And failure has to be part of that process, part of living, part of growing. And you're learning from those experiences. And so I just want to thank you for sharing your heart and sharing your 7 C's and sharing with this listening community that this is part of the journey of life. You have definitely want us to inspire until we expire. But my last question to you, if there was a book written about you, not the 7 C's, if there was a book written about John Alston, what would be some of the summations or what would be one of the chapters that you want us to take away today about John Alston?
I think that the chapters would be, I would hope people would say this, that the time I met him and he helped me would be one chapter.
Mhm.
The other time would be, he's not as funny as he thinks he is. And that chapter would be written by the lovely Mrs. Alston.
I love it. I love it. Absolutely.
Final chapter is that he loved God, he loved his family, he loved firefighters, he loved firefighting, and he loved people.
Look at there. Absolutely. And and my wife would say part of my chapter that yeah, same thing. He's not as funny as he thinks he is. And part of that, she'll say, you can't run like you used to run. You're getting older now because I was a runner. So she'll talk about that sometimes. You can't be lifting as much as you used to lift. So, Chief, I want to thank you for sharing your heart today. And I really appreciate your service. I really appreciate having you in my sphere of influence. I really appreciate you being a mentor as well. I appreciate you being the connection. I appreciate this opportunity for us finally coming together. And I know you and I have actually sit together at one of the live events in Orlando. And so it's been years in coming. So if I'm ever in your area,
Come
I'm
on,
coming. I'm
come
coming to
on.
find you. I'm coming to find you, man. I want to break bread together. I want to hang out on the fire truck, and I want to
Come
be able to
on.
pull that. Can I pull the siren? Can I
Of
do
course
that?
you can.
Oh man,
Of
thank you.
course you can. Of course you can. And likewise, if I'm in your area, and I appreciate everything that you're doing. You and I talk about leadership, and we set things back and forth, and it's important about connecting with and connecting for people on their behalf. So yeah,
Absolutely.
and anytime you and I can and share that kind of talk, man, I'm always available. Appreciate the
All,
invitation, and
all
thank you
my
to your audience for being so kind.
They were absolutely kind. Ladies and gentlemen, you talking about a man, I was talking about a servant, man of God. I think I got one more comment that's coming up right now, if I can get to that bottom, but absolutely. What a Carr said, absolutely wonderful interview. He just loved it. And absolutely. This is Carl Williams. Carl, thank you, sir, for
Thank you,
being
Carl.
part of this audience today. And thank you for your comments. And ladies and gentlemen, This is airing on Facebook Live and LinkedIn Live and YouTube Live every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Central Standard Time. I want you to share this information with others. What a phenomenal interview with Chief John Alston today. I want us to always to be encouraged to fight on, to lead on, to serve on, to grow on, because we have an example today coming from a real life person that's on this show that has been reaching and fulfilling his God-given purpose. And we want to make sure that the best gift that we have is the best gift that you and I can give our family, give our community, is the best version of ourselves. So tune in next week for another broadcast of Win with Willie Leadership Talk Show. Be blessed and have a wonderful week. And I will see you next week. Remember my closing mantra, 2022, the year of no excuses. We must inspire until we expire.